Let's be honest, the AI world is completely obsessed with these so-called autonomous agents that can do everything. But what if the real secret to building AI that actually works in production isn't about giving it total freedom, but about making it totally reliable? Well, in this explainer, we're going to cut right through all that hype and focus on these simple, powerful patterns that IT teams are using to get real work done right now. So picture this. You're starting to build a new AI feature. You almost immediately hit a fork in the road. Do you go all in on some big, complex framework that promises the world? Or do you start with simple, direct code that you can actually understand and control? It's a huge decision, and it's one that developers are facing everywhere. And it turns out, the answer we're seeing from people who are succeeding is, well, it's pretty clear. The best, most successful AI implementations aren't built on a mountain of complexity. Nope, they're built with simple, stackable patterns. It really just comes down to a classic engineering principle, right? Use reliable parts you can actually debug when things go wrong. Okay, so if we're not building these fully autonomous, unpredictable agents, then what are we building? The answer is workflows. And this is all about a huge mindset shift, moving away from unpredictable autonomy and towards controlled, predictable processes that give you the right result every single time. I mean, the difference here is like night and day. Workflows, they follow predefined paths in your code. This makes them absolutely perfect for those well-defined tasks where you just need consistency. Agents, on the other hand, are dynamic. They're autonomous, which sounds cool, but they're way harder to control. And for most systems in production, that predictability isn't just a nice-to-have, it's an absolute requirement. So what's the very first building block in this whole workflow approach? It's a beautifully simple but incredibly powerful pattern called prompt chaining. You can think of this as the #1 tool in your toolkit for when a single giant prompt just isn't cutting it for accuracy or reliability. You know, if you've ever used a Unix pipe on the command line, like ls/grep, you already get prompt chaining. It's really that simple. You just break a big task into smaller, more focused subtasks. The output from the first LLM call becomes the input for the second one. It's just a pipeline, but for language models. So here's how it actually works. A task comes in, right? The first LLM call does one specific thing. Maybe it summarizes some text. But then, and this is the most important part, you hit the programmatic gate. This is your code. This is where you, the developer, step in. You can validate the format, you can check business logic, you can make sure the quality is there before you pass it along to the next LLM. That gate is your secret weapon. It's your control point. So when is this the right tool for the job? Well, you should use it anytime you have a task that can be broken down into clear, distinct steps. Use it when you're willing to accept a tiny bit of extra latency in exchange for a massive gain in accuracy. Because each LLM in the chain gets one focused job, the quality of your final output just skyrockets. Okay, that's the theory. It sounds good, but what does this actually look like in the real world? Let's walk through a couple of practical examples and see how prompt chaining can solve some very real problems for different kinds of IT teams. Okay, imagine you work at a fintech company. Instead of trying to write one giant, complex prompt, you build a simple chain. Step 1, ingest the raw transaction data. Step 2, a specialized, focused prompt classifies the fraud risk. Is it low, medium, or high? And only after your code confirms that output is valid does a third step kick in to generate a clean, simple summary for a human analyst. What you get is a reliable, totally auditable process. Or how about this? Think about a DevOps or an SRE team right in the middle of an outage. An alert fires. The first LLM call in the chain takes a messy, horrible-looking log error and just parses it into clean, structured data. The second call uses that clean data to search your internal knowledge base for potential root cause. And then the final step? It drafts a preliminary incident report with all that context already filled in. This kind of chain can save you critical minutes when every second counts. And finally, let's look at a regulated industry like healthcare, where, control is just, it's everything. A prompt chain is perfect for handling sensitive data systematically. The first step does one and only one thing. It anonymizes patient information from clinical notes. Once that's verified by your code, a second step can safely extract key entities like diagnoses or medications. And the final step structures all that data for analysis. Every single part of the process is controlled and it's auditable. What all these examples really show us is that the real power isn't in some mind-bending complexity, but
but in smart, simple design. And that really brings us to the core philosophy for building any successful AI system. You gotta start simple.
As you get started building, just keep these 3 rules in mind. First, maintain simplicity. Seriously, don't add another step to your chain unless you can prove it actually makes the result better. Second, prioritize transparency. A simple chain is so much easier to debug because you can look at the input and output of every single step. And third, craft your interface. Treat your prompts like well-documented tools in your codebase. And that brings us to the final question, and this one's for you. I want you to forget about those complex futuristic agents for just a minute and just look at your own work. What's a repetitive, multi-step task that your team deals with every single day? What's the first simple 2 or 3 step prompt chain that you could build, maybe even this week, to solve it?